Mr. President, Keir Simmons from NBC News. Two questions
Господин президент
in
Кир
English,
Симмонс,
if
два
you don't
вопроса,
mind.
если вы
Sorry, Mr.
позволите.
The first one is about
Первый.
President-elect Trump.
Он касается избранного
Mr.
президента
President,
Трампа.
you
Господин
have
президент,
failed to reach the objectives of your
вы не
special
смогли достичь
military
целей
operation.
специальной военной
Large
операции.
numbers of Russians have
Большое
died,
количество
including a
россиян
general
погибли,
assassinated
включая
here in
генерала,
Moscow,
на
this
которого было
week.
совершено покушение
And the
здесь, в
leader of
Москве,
Syria,
на этой
who you
supported,
supported,
и глава
has been
Сирии, которому вы оказывали
overthrown.
поддержку,
Mr. President, when
был
you
отстранен
face
от власти.
President-elect
Господин
Trump,
президент, когда
you
вы
will be the
встретитесь
weaker leader.
с президентом Трампом, вы будете более слабым лидером. Как вы собираетесь поступить, что вы сможете предложить в качестве компромисса? И второй вопрос, господин президент. Мать американского журналиста, который пропал без вести в Сирии, Остин Тайс, направила вам письмо и просила вашей помощи в поисках сына, потому что она сказала, что у вас есть связи с сирийским правительством и бывшим президентом Асадом. Готовы ли вы к тому, чтобы попросить президента Асада предоставить информацию о том, что произошло в Сирии, для того, чтобы можно было найти этого пропавшего без вести?
Если вам сказать честно, садитесь, пожалуйста.
Frankly, I have not met with President Bashar al-Assad after his arrival in Moscow. But I plan to do it and will certainly talk to him. We are adults and understand that the person disappeared in Syria 12 years ago. 12 years. We realize what was happening in Syria 12 years ago. The country was caught in active military action on both sides. Does President al-Assad know what happened to this American citizen, the journalist who, as far as I understand, was working in the zone of hostilities? Nevertheless, I promise that I will definitely ask him this question, just like we can forward this question to the people who are controlling the situation on the ground in Syria today. You asked what we can offer or what I can offer to newly elected President Trump when we meet. First of all, I don't know when we will meet because he has not said anything about it. I have not talked to him for more than 4 years. Of course, I'm ready to talk anytime. I will be ready to meet with him if he wishes. You said that this conversation will take place with me in some kind of weakened state. Esteemed Mr. Simmons. Why did I say esteemed? Because despite all the persecution of Russian media, we allow you to continue working in Russia, and you can do so freely. It is good enough. You and the people who pay your salary in the United States really want to see Russia in a weakened state. My opinion differs. I believe that Russia has become significantly stronger in the past 2 or 3 years. Why? Because we are becoming a truly sovereign country, and we barely depend on anybody. We are capable of firmly standing on our feet when it comes to the economy. I've already talked about economic growth rates. We are strengthening our defense capability. The combat readiness of the Russian armed forces is the highest in the world today. I assure you it is the highest. The same is true of our defense industry. We are increasing the production of everything our Army and Navy need now and will need in the future. We are doing so confidently and quickly, unlike our opponents. I have already spoken about the successes of our armed forces, which are due in large measure to production growth in the defense industry of the Russian Federation. As I have said, we are doing this confidently and quite rationally. It has been said that our forces are advancing along the front line. One explanation for this is the existence of the equipment I have mentioned. Yes, in fact, all NATO countries are fighting against us. We spoke about our inflation. And what is the situation over there? Take a 155 mm shell, which cost 2,000 euros 2 years ago and now costs 4 times more, 8,000 euros. If this trend persists, 2% of GDP spending on defense in NATO countries, which President-elect Donald Trump always insisted on, will not suffice. Even 3% will not be enough. The training and combat standards and the morale of the Russian armed forces are higher than those of any other army in the world. That is why I believe that Russia has largely achieved the state we wanted to achieve. It has grown stronger and become a truly sovereign state, and we will make decisions without looking at other people's opinions, only with our national interests in mind. You have mentioned Syria. You, and as I said, those who pay your salary would like to present the current developments in Syria as Russia's defeat. I assure you that this is not the case, and here is why. We came to Syria 10 years ago to prevent the creation of a terrorist enclave there, like the one that we saw in some other countries, for example, Afghanistan. We have achieved that goal, by and large. Even the groups that were fighting against the Assad regime and the government forces back then have undergone internal changes. It is not surprising that many European countries and the United States are trying to develop relations with them now. Would they be doing this if they were terrorist organizations? This means that they have changed, doesn't it? So our goal has been achieved to a certain degree. Next, we did not deploy any ground forces in Syria. They simply were not present there. Our presence consisted solely of 2 bases, an air base and a naval base. The ground operations were conducted by the Syrian armed forces, and, as is widely known, there is no secret here, certain pro-Iranian combat units. At one point, we even withdrew our special operations forces from the area. We were not engaged in combat there. So, what transpired? When armed opposition groups advanced towards Aleppo, the city was defended by approximately 30,000 personnel. However, when 350 militants entered the city, the government forces, along with the pro-Iranian units, withdrew without resistance, demolishing their positions as they left. This pattern was observed across nearly the entire Syrian territory, with only minor exceptions where skirmishes occurred. In the past, our Iranian friends requested assistance to move their units into Syria. Now they have asked us to help withdraw them. We facilitated the relocation of 4,000 Iranian fighters to Tehran from the Khmeimim air base. Some pro-Iranian units withdrew to Lebanon, others to Iraq, without engaging in combat. The current situation in the Syrian Arab Republic remains challenging. We sincerely hope for peace and stability to be restored. We maintain dialogue with all groups controlling the situation there and with all regional countries. An overwhelming majority of them have expressed interest in retaining our military bases in Syria. I do not know. We must reflect on how our relations will evolve with the political forces currently in control and those that will govern this country in the future. Our interests must align. Should we remain, we must act in the interests of the host nation. What will those interests entail? What can we do for them? These questions demand careful consideration on both sides. We are already capable of offering assistance, including utilizing our bases. We have extended this proposal to our partners within Syria and neighboring nations. For instance, we suggested employing the Khmeimim Air Base for the delivery of humanitarian aid to Syria, and this was met with understanding and a willingness to collaborate. The same applies to the Tartus Naval Base. Therefore, for those who wish to depict Russia as weakened, since you are an American, I would like to remind you of a well-known writer who once remarked, "The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated." Should there be an opportunity for a meeting with the newly elected President Donald Trump, I am confident there will be plenty to discuss.
Mr. President, I would like to remind you of another question that my colleague asked about the murder of General Kirillov.
Yes, about the murder of General Kirillov. You have mentioned this was an attempted assassination. I thank you for this because you have indirectly acknowledged that it was a terrorist attack. Why? Because the modus operandi used by the perpetrator for this murder endangered the lives of many. The regime in Kyiv has repeatedly committed similar crimes, acts of terror and terrorist attacks against many citizens of the Russian Federation, let alone what they are doing in Kursk now, firing at civilians, I mean in the Kursk region and in other regions of Russia. They have killed journalists, your colleagues, committed terrorist attacks against journalists. However, we have never heard, I am not referring to you personally, anyone from the Western Journalistic Corps openly condemn such attacks. But I am grateful to you for remembering this at least.
Well, my question is,
Мой вопрос такой. Готовы ли вы каким-либо образом достигать компромиссов по поводу Киева? Вы говорили, что Украина должна идти на компромиссы, а вы готовы идти на компромиссы? Что вы готовы предложить в качестве уступок? Возможно, в переговорах...
I apologize for missing this part of your question, which is very important. Politics is the art of compromise. We have always said that we are ready for both negotiations and compromises. The problem is that the opposing side, both literally and figuratively, rejected negotiations. We, on the contrary, have always been willing to talk, and talking always leads to finding a compromise. We did reach an agreement in Istanbul in late 2022. I repeat for the umpteenth time. The Ukrainian side initialed that document, which meant that generally it agreed with what it contained. Suddenly they wanted out. It is clear why. Because your ally, Mr. Johnson, the man with an iconic hairstyle, told them they were to fight to the last Ukrainian. This is what they are doing. They will soon run out of Ukrainians who want to fight. I believe there will soon be no one left who wants to fight. So we are ready, but we need that country to be ready for both negotiations and compromise.